did you graduate? You don't care. I'm generally just asking from another man to another man. No disrespect.
Sure?
I swear to God, yeah.
Whoa! Bro, why? No! Bro.
Streamer Androgenic, who should probably rebrand himself to Baldwenic, is a looks-maxing self-improvement coach who's all about teaching men about how to be the best version of themselves.
Keep watching, because I'm about to break down exactly what's inside my private community, what you get, how people just like you have been transforming, and why joining might just be the single best decision you could make for your ascension.
But it would seem that Baldwenic's version of looks-maxing is more akin to being a fraud. Fraud-maxing, if you would. And it would seem that looks-maxing, according to Baldwenic, is all about coping, denying who you are, and pretending to be something that you're not. AKA someone with a good hairline. In case you don't know what looksmaxxing is, looksmaxxing can range from the healthy going to the gym or taking care of your skin by applying your nut on your face before going to bed, or it can devolve into these mentally deranged practices such as smashing your jaw with a hammer to give it a more chiseled look, when in reality you just look mentally disabled and you're more likely to just permanently disfigure yourself and look more chopped than you initially did. But here's a clear example of someone who took looksmaxxing way too far. So back in 2016, this person by the name of Connor Murphy used to look like this, and I would argue that he used to look like a lot of people's best versions of themselves back then. Well, Connor over here decided to go all in on looksmaxxing and decided to follow some extreme techniques that are shield within the looksmaxxing community. And this is what he looks like today. Bro, first of all, I don't even know what his Giga Chat music is playing. Someone cue in the Alvin and the Chipmunk soundtrack instead. Bro, I'm gonna be real here, but when you purposely get jawline surgery to the point where you now look like a chipmunk, or you now look like you've got 2 tumors on your face, at that point, that's not looksmaxxing. That's chop-maxing at that point. Smash like and subscribe if you agree. And before anyone says, oh, this is clearly fake, Connor probably put some balls inside of his mouth to inflate his jawline or some shit like that. Well, that's initially what I thought as well, but there's literally a 3-hour live stream from a week ago where Connor actually collabed with Baldwenic over here, and as you can clearly see, they both look chopped as fuck. I mean, you look at Baldwenic for a second and I'm gonna be honest here, he just looks like an uncanny valley SCP entity. And it looks like he's wearing makeup. Not that there's anything wrong with wearing makeup if you're a girl or a guy, but it's just funny to me about a looksmaxxing coach who's out there selling overpriced courses about how to become the best version of yourself, about how to become a confident man, when you're literally getting exposed for being a fraud maxer who wears wigs in order to hide his chopped hairline and who wears makeup now apparently. Especially when you make mugging people in public your content. Brother, you can't be mugging people in public when you're literally a fraud maxer if you would. But going back to Connor for a second, you can clearly see that he still, in a live stream, looked like a chipmunk. So this to me, this tells me that he did indeed get surgery on his jawline to purposely look like he's got 2 tumors on his face now. And during those 3 hours of them mugging and talking to strangers, it never sounded like Connor had 2 balls inside of his mouth in order to inflate his jawline.
Yeah. Okay. We've walked here before,
okay.
Yes.
So once again, sadly, it really looks like he got jawline surgery to look like a chipmunk. But 3 days ago, Baldwenic decided to do another mugging live stream, but this time, he's the one who got mugged.
What is the actual name? From like your clip or whatever.
Whoa! Bro, why? No! Bro, that is going viral as fuck. I just got a hair transplant, bro.
Now keep in mind that Baldwenic's content is all about flexing on unattractive people or manlets according to his chat. There was even a segment where Baldwenic was mugging a bald guy. You could even see Androgenic's chat making fun of the bald guy, which is ironic because Baldwenic without his wig suddenly looks like someone with not only a chopped hairline, but he also looks like someone with, I'm gonna be honest here, with a chopped cranium. I don't know if it's just me, but there's just something wrong with his facial structure. Let me be clear. I know we are all in agreement when I said that a bald guy being confident about himself gives infinitely more Giga Chat energy than someone being in denial about himself, coping about himself, and who uses wigs to hide his deformed cranium. Now, I do want to make sure there's no misunderstanding here. I've got no problem with men wearing makeup, wearing wigs, or getting hair transplants. What I do have a problem with, however, is when it comes to looksmaxxers mugging strangers in public, especially when they're a fraud maxer. But I've seen some people saying that this was all staged, scripted, and even Baldwenic himself is out there trying to convince us really really hard that this was all scripted and that he was all in on it, guys. But here's why I don't personally believe for a second that he was in on it. First of all, we gotta remember that Looksmaxxing extremists take their physical appearances very seriously, to the point where people like Baldwenic go through rhinoplasties and hair transplants in order to look better. So why the fuck would he purposely tank his rep within the Looksmaxxing community, where he's known as the definition of a Giga Chad, just to go viral and be forever known as the fraud maxer guy who is so insecure about himself that he's literally wearing wigs in order to hide his cooked hairline? You have to remember that Baldwenic is literally getting paid to be a Looksmaxxing coach, and people look up to him. They think he's gonna be the solution to, you know, remove their insecurity and improve their looks. But talking about insecurity, one of the big selling points of Baldwenic's overpriced courses is how he's supposedly going to teach you how to not be insecure anymore and how to be confident, just like how Baldwenic stopped being insecure himself. In fact, you'll see him on TikTok preaching about how people need to stop being insecure.
Do not let people shame you into thinking that wanting to Looksmax makes you insecure. Identifying something that you can improve and then improving it is an insecurity. It's called agency. And other people love to shame and moralize your agency when it doesn't benefit them because it makes them uncomfortable. Insecurity is tying your self-worth to looks or just refusing to admit that they matter in the first place.
That's where you've got it wrong, pal. I'll tell you what insecurity is. Insecurity is going out in public, mugging strangers while wearing a wig in order to hide your cooked hairline. Brother, you're the definition of insecurity. A second reason as to why I personally don't believe for a second that this was all scripted and all planned by Baldwenic himself is because of how he literally crashed out on Twitter and admitted that he says the N-word when he found out that one of the people who took his wig was black. I don't know, guys. Being known as a guy with the cooked hairline who's so insecure about himself that he's wearing wigs in order to mock strangers in public, on top of being racist, I don't think that helps at all with your Looksmaxxing portfolio, if I'm being honest here.
The Looksmaxxing niche is only going to get bigger because it's so self-reinforcing. I get my wig snatched off in public, and I just get millions of people telling me I look disgusting. And look, you might be right, but you're just proving the importance of looks more.
Brother, you're not going viral because of your chopped deformed cranium. You're going viral because you're a Looksmaxxing influencer who goes out in public, mugs strangers, flexes on strangers, even though you're hiding your biggest insecurity behind a wig, who get exposed for being a fraud maxer when you got that wig removed. And now he's mad that the insecure people he's preying on are finding out about him being a fraud. But the third reason as to why I don't believe for a second that this was scripted or staged at all is because the moment he got his wig removed by one of the tricksters, he immediately ran towards him and said, "Why, bro? Why would you do this, bro? I had a hair transplant, bro."
Whoa! Bro, why? No! Why? Bro, that is going viral as fuck. I just got a hair transplant, bro.
Like, you can clearly tell that his ego was instantly shattered and he felt extremely embarrassed, which is kind of funny to me because the person who went out of his way to go in public, to look down on strangers, to look down on chopped people in public, was suddenly now the butt of the joke. Let's think about it for a second, guys. If you're a Looksmaxxer who built his entire career looking good and who convinced people that you're the solution to their insecurity and bad looks, why the fuck would you purposely go viral for being a fraud and for having this diabolical look in public? Who wants to look this chopped in public? Nobody does! Smash like and subscribe if you agree. Now, I know I've been memeing a lot, but I want to make sure there's no misunderstanding here. There is nothing wrong with having a fucked up hairline like Baldwenic over here, okay? But there's a lot wrong with making harassing strangers or flexing on subjectively unconventionally attractive people your content. I know I speak for everyone here when I said that we're all tired of these annoying streamers, influencers, YouTubers who are out there making content at the expense of unsuspecting strangers. So when you're out there selling overpriced courses to gullible people and you get exposed in public for being a fraud, we're all gonna laugh at your deformed head structure. Now, Baldwenic has been desperately trying to sell the narrative that, oh, he's the one who's winning. He's the one who's going viral, and it was all orchestrated by him truly.
So I'm going extremely viral for having my wig snatched off on, especially on X, but on all platforms. And it's only been like fucking 6 hours. I don't think people realize that I've literally publicly been spamming videos of me being bald for like 2 months. And I literally publicly made videos showing that I'm wearing a wig like days ago. But I'm glad this is going this viral. This is pretty crazy. No aura is being lost, I'll tell you that much.
Sure, you're getting a lot of attention. Even the mainstream news are reporting on you. But is it really the kind of attention that Looksmaxxer would really want? That's like going viral in high school for farting in the back of your class. It's like, yeah, you're getting everybody's attention, but is that the kind of attention you want? I don't think so. And it is true that Baldwenic has uploaded multiple times on his TikTok prior to the wig incident about him shaving his head. But the reason as to why he shaved his head was not because he was trying to go for the new Looksmaxxing Sigma look or some bull. Like that, right? No, he shaved his head because he was going to get a hair transplant, and obviously he wasn't going to go 5 months, a year without uploading video. So he convinced his audience into believing that him shaving his head and getting a hair transplant was his next step into achieving the perfect Looksmaxxing figure, which is totally fine, don't get it twisted. I've got no problem with that. But then he had to be weird and tell his audience, hey, I feel like mugging strangers in public, but I can't wait for my hair transplant wounds to heal. But he knew! He was self-aware of the fact that he can't be mugging strangers while looking chopped like that, which is why he wore a wig, which is just a whole new level of insecurity, weird behavior, and just cringe the more you think about it. That's why this Looksmaxxing fraud is going viral. Let's not get it twisted, guys. It's because of his clown behavior. But anyway, guys, smash like and subscribe if Baldwenic is now gonna say the ching chong word after watching my video.
Money, 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 money.